3,700 Coloradans have pulled their names off the voter rolls since the Trump administration requested all publicly available voter information from each state. Now, that's a tiny percentage of the state's total voters, but it is a wild spike in voter withdrawals. Our visual producer was out today, so you're going to have to deal with this representation of it instead. So the cause and effect is honestly quite clear. The head of President Trump's Voter Fraud Commission, which is out searching for evidence of the president's unsupported claim of millions of illegal votes, even saw evidence of voter fraud in this, saying that Coloradans withdrawing in protest could be felons or people here illegally who shouldn't vote. There is no evidence of that. Zero evidence. Just like there is no evidence of the president's claim that 3 to 5 million illegal votes cost him the popular vote. In just a moment, I'll speak with a Democrat running for Secretary of State. She doesn't like our Republican Secretary of State's response, but she's also not too happy with all those Democratic voters who are withdrawing. Fundraising numbers are due today for Colorado's candidates for governor. About half of the current and expected candidates are wealthy self-funder types, so they might as well just, screen grab the checking account and send that in as good. The rest will have to raise money the old-fashioned way by cajoling donors for it. We'll talk Democrats first. Kerry Kennedy raised $343,000, Mike Johnson $300,000, Ed Perlmutter $340,000 before he dropped out last week. We don't have a bank account snapshot yet from Jared Polis. He'll be fine. To the Republicans, George Brockler raised $190,000. Victor Mitchell only $13,000, you say, but he's another one of those self-funders. He's just going to cut himself a fat check. Ever wonder what happens to all the money that candidates raise when they lose? Well, once they pay off expenses, they can keep it and run for something else. Hey, speaking of Darrell Glenn, he's back. The Republican who lost to Senator Michael Bennet last year is joining the Republican primary against Congressman Doug Lamborn down in the Springs. During that Senate race, Glenn endorsed Donald Trump, unendorsed him, then ended up voting for him. But Glenn tells us that America needs to move on from that fight.
My frustration is that a lot of people are stuck in the election cycle. We need to get past that. The election has happened. What's not being addressed are the issues that so many families are facing. And I think we need to hold both parties accountable for coming up with solutions to address these concerns.
Glenn had a surprisingly strong closing kick against Bennet. He's going to be in the Republican mix against Congressman Lamborn and another challenger, State Senator Owen Hill. The Democrat in the general election likely doesn't stand a chance in that district. The city of Longmont delivered social media smackdowns for citizens who called them out for the warrantless searches of low-income housing that we've been talking about here. An outside investigation found Longmont police did not follow proper procedures to ensure those searches were constitutional. Longmont sat on that report for days and then sent out a press release Friday, 15 minutes before the close of business, then refused to answer our questions about what's in that report and said that the public can't see it. A citizen named Chris Lamson called him on it for this Friday night news dump. Classy move, he wrote on the City of Longmont's Facebook page, and Longmont fired back, replying to its own resident, "What's a good time for you? I'll try to meet your schedule in the future." Chris Lamson, whose tax dollars paid for both the warrantless searches and the city communications team's sassy dismissive response, was not having it. He wrote back, "How about not violating the constitutional rights of our neighbors in the first place? How about coming clean up front if you do?" "We'll do that," the city of Longmont replied. The city's social media account offered an apology the next day for what it called curt responses. Still no similar apology for the now admittedly improper practice of those warrantless searches. Tomorrow, Longmont Housing Authority may receive its internal investigation on those searches, but it's not clear whether the public is going to get to see that either. Attracting big business is a big business of its own. The town of Parker convinced Gander Mountain to build a new store at Parker Road and E470. It was a sweet deal. Construction permit fees were cut in half. Gander Mountain got a kickback on some of the sales tax. The deal was supposed to last 5 years. The store's not even going to make it past 1 year. Our Marshall Zellinger is looking into who really benefits from these deals.
It's a sign, just not the kind you want on the store that just had its grand opening in September. Gander Mountain in Parker is going out of business. 2 years ago, it agreed to an economic benefit package that gave them 50% off construction and permit costs and reimbursement of some of the town's sales tax.
We're not fronting any money. We're not writing a check for anything. They're submitting the sales tax, and then we're rebating a portion of that back to them.
Parker Councilman Josh Martin sat down with me to talk about a deal hatched in 2015, which so far reimbursed Gander Mountain $15,000 in construction costs and $64,000 in sales tax.
The ground, if it's bare, is not generating anything on behalf of the town, so to share back a portion, we're still well ahead of the game of receiving zero.
The store that won't even make it to its first birthday got $80,000 back just for choosing Parker. And that's not counting the sales still going on.
If a company was going to go out of business less than a year after they opened, should they have received any economic development benefit?
You know, I think that's a tough question. You can look at it as, oh, the town should have known better, but at the same time, to your point, hindsight is 20/20. Is it a lot of money? Yes. Were we able to, to gain some money? Yes.
Not all economic development deals end with a fire sale. The old King Soopers across the street was leveled and rebuilt with a shinier crown. Construction of the building earned Parker $550,000. The grocery store gets a kickback of sales tax for 8 years. A lot of the sales tax. Since it opened in late 2015, the store has generated $1.5 million in sales tax. Parker gets the half. King Soopers gets the $1 million. One more note on Gander Mountain's deal. Even though the store is liquidating all merchandise and we know it's going out of business, the economic development benefit remains. The store still gets a portion back of the sales tax. This is when I wish I was a real-life shruggy emoji.
Yeah, one of those. Just think of the incentives we had to give Marshall to get him over here. Thank you. So let's return now to the Trump administration's search for voter fraud and dive into my conversation today with Jenna Griswold. She's a Democrat running against Republican Secretary of State Wayne Williams. Secretary of State Williams told the Trump administration that they can have the publicly accessible information, but no more. You would acknowledge that the information that he has agreed to hand over is information that you could get or that I could get if we wrote a letter, correct?
True, but
okay.
We're not the federal government. And I think the federal government, we shouldn't treat it like any other third party. It's a huge bureaucracy, and it's required to go through its own laws and procedures. One of the checks that the federal government does before requesting state data is to ensure that that data that we give over is stored in a secured server. That goes to the heart of a lot of Coloradans' concerns. Privacy. So I do think it is very important to hear Coloradans and to make sure that this Trump administration, this request, is following its own internal rules, the federal law, because our democracy, it's a democracy of rule of law.
So 3,700 Coloradans have pulled their names off the voter roll since this came in. Who's to blame for that?
Well, I don't think the Trump Commission has helped anybody. This commission, it's based on the idea, the false idea, that there's widespread voter fraud. Absolutely no proof of this. Wayne Williams would agree. I think he would agree.
He has before. Voter fraud, does it exist?
We have laws in place in Colorado to suss out when there is double voting. It's extremely rare.
Jenna Griswold is encouraging voters who withdrew, predominantly Democrats, to re-enroll. We talk about that in depth and also whether Coloradans would like to see a more partisan Secretary of State. That's in our full unedited interview. It's on the next YouTube channel. The ad makes scary claims about the Republican health care plan, but let's see what's still standing after our truth test. There are some librarians who would really like to see your tattoos.
My mission in the world is to make people go, the library is doing what?
And the most Colorado thing we saw today. Do you see it? Look closely. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a sunset. That's a doppelganger for our state flag. Next viewer Joshua Rumble took this picture looking over Mount Elbert. Do you see it there? You've got the yellow center sun, the red sea around it, and the blue up top. Josh knew to send it to us with the hashtag HeyNext.
One today. It only gets warmer as we move into Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday. I'm meteorologist Kathy Sabin. Beautiful day in downtown Denver. The clouds offering little relief from the heat, but way up high, some rain. Yeah, in areas like the Loveland Ski Resort and on I-70 this afternoon. Lower elevations, it was wind, lightning, and heat. 97 degrees in Denver today. The record 102. We'll go warmer Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the ridge shifts a little bit. Enough moisture coming in. Storms are tracking off the foothills from the northwest toward the southeast. Non-severe. Wind Wind and lightning still something you might have to deal with tonight and again tomorrow. All of that tropical moisture moving up from the southwest, coming around that high located near Dallas. The high begins to move east, breaking down, allowing for a couple of weak weather disturbances to travel in, but not until the end of the week. So get set. It is going to be very warm the next couple of days. We'll be threatening the record high of 99 tomorrow. Isolated gusty storms tonight, then clearing, our low 63. Tomorrow, hot highs back in the upper 90s. Again, the record 99, very close to that. Hot day on Wednesday, and then a little bit of a cooling trend heading into the weekend. We increase our chance for showers as well. About a 30 to 40% chance of showers from storms Saturday afternoon, with a better chance on Sunday.
Kathy, thanks. Senate Republicans delaying their health care bill vote means that all the groups who are rallying against it can tweak and ramp up their advertising. Politics guy Brandon Ritteman gives one of those ads the truth test treatment.
The AARP still doesn't like the bill, and they still want you to tell Cory Gardner to vote against it. Now, Gardner hasn't taken a position on this bill yet, and that bill seems to change a little bit almost daily. So keep in mind that what we're about to go over, it can change. And with that, here's what the ad says the Senate bill is going to do to you.
You'll spend even more on premiums.
This depends on your circumstances. Where the bill would change premiums is the individual market. These are plans people buy on their own, not plans you get through work, which is what most people have. Overall, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office expects individual market premiums to go up in the next few years and then go down long term under this bill. And that's because plans wouldn't have to cover as many things as they do right now under the ACA or Obamacare. But the subsidy system, it would change dramatically, and by and large, those changes would make insurance cheaper for young people and more expensive for older people. For instance, if you take a single person making almost $57,000 a year, by the year 2026, the CBO says their premiums would cost $1,000 less than Obamacare under the Senate bill for a 21-year-old. But a same person with that income at age 64 would pay almost $14,000 a year more in premiums. The ad goes on.
Pay more for prescriptions.
This claim is iffy. Here's the path that you'd have to take to get there. The Senate bill allows states to apply for waivers to change what are called EHBs, or essential health benefits. This is the minimum stuff that has to be in a private plan. Under Obamacare, that includes things like maternity care, wellness exams, and yes, prescription drug coverage. So, in theory, a state could apply for a waiver that cuts prescriptions out of the EHBs for its plans, and then you could end up paying more for prescriptions. But this ad is pretending that all of that will happen for sure, which obviously it doesn't know right now. Also, there is one part of the bill that directly takes aim at prescriptions. That repeals a tax charged on some prescriptions, which, if anything, would make those specific drugs cheaper, not more expensive.
And your family's coverage could be taken away altogether.
This also depends. What they're really talking about here is Medicaid, and the GOP bill does make cuts to Medicaid. Depending on your income level and what your state decides to do about those cuts, if you're on Medicaid right now, you could end up having Medicaid taken away from you, but it's not a certainty. Bottom line, this ad blurs the lines between different kinds of health coverage. It tells different horror stories about the individual market and Medicaid without explaining that those issues apply to different groups of people. And much like we saw in the ads against Obamacare, this ad cherry picks the worst case scenarios to paint the grimmest picture that it can. The truth just isn't as simple in this complicated bill, which again is likely to change before any deal is done. With your truth test, Brandon Ritteman, 9 News.
Don't believe the mainstream media? You can see Brandon's detailed research and all of his citations for this and every truth test. They have their own dedicated section on 9news.com.
They ate cookies, and they remembered the kind woman who made downtown a better place. Show Librarians your tattoo, and they'll show you something as well. Don't worry, this is still a family-friendly show, at least until we get to feedback. Next.
This was the last day of business at the Santa Fe Cookie Company in Denver. The owner wasn't there, and the cookies were just given away. Debbie Keene passed away last month. Her family felt that baking up and passing out one last batch was the best tribute.
Yeah, it's a big loss for Denver, you know.
Yes. Oh, thank you. You're awesome.
Well, I got to know her only from buying cookies, and
After a while, I never came in the door that everybody's coming through. I came through the side door because we would sneak in conversations between customers. And just during some times in my life that were kind of tough, she always had a listening ear, and she just became a really close friend, and it's kind of hard to talk about it.
We need like 3 more trays of chocolate chip.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there's another tray of chocolate chip there, Slave.
All walks of life, you know, she could relate. She was very sociable, very nice, and
there's sugar, yeah, sugar here.
Good to finally get, you know, her recipe of cookies and one last time before the send-off.
Oh, long time. Long time. Yeah. Did you know her when she was over at the over in the alley? Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
It was Keene's niece, Alex McLean, who had the idea to give away the cookies. She's helped out at that shop over the years, and she's considering taking over the business. The Denver Public Library wants people to show a little skin, specifically whatever part of you is home to a tattoo. And based on that, they will recommend a book that they think will speak to you, based on the art that you choose to wear every day. So all day, tattoo photos have been popping up on the library's Facebook page, followed by librarians' thoughtful and personal recommendations.
We're here at the Central Library. We're giving recommendations today. Actually, I'd like to say we're giving suggestions.
Every Irish book. We've given every Irish book out.
On things that we think people might like reading, watching, or listening to.
Michael's like, I want to get snarky. I was like, okay.
Based on the very personal artwork that they put on their body, tattoos.
It's really to like connect readers with books in a personal way and recreate the feeling that they have from books and movies and music that they've loved in the past.
7,581 so far.
And we're doing it through Facebook so that it allows people to have a forum to interact with each other. The more they give us about their backstory or why they got the tattoo, the better recommendations we can give.
We say 3, but sometimes we get a little extra excited and we have to give 4. They're all things that the library owns. We verified that it's things they can actually get their hands on.
So it looks like we're at 53 comments.
We're always looking for new ways to connect with our customers and show that the library is not the kind of place that you got kicked out of. Definitely a favorite was the pig that looked like David Bowie. I do have a tattoo.
I actually don't. I keep thinking that that's like the worst.
It's the infinity symbol, and it's to remind me that there's infinity in every moment.
I know I want to make it library-centric, but I just haven't like pinpointed it yet.
They should expect the unexpected at the library.
More than 200 people requested a book recommendation based off a tattoo today. The library says it's one of the largest responses they've ever seen. And it reminded us, when Next went on the air almost a year ago, we would occasionally share the stories that you have written close to your heart, or your arm, or your leg. Let's share a few more of those starting now. Today, Jerry Worthington posted this on our Facebook page. It is a memorial for her son, Ryan. He died in October of 2014 from a heroin overdose. Jerry shared with us that every time she looks at the tattoo, she remembers Ryan's constant joking about his love of Fruit Loops. She looks at it and it makes her smile. Show us the story that you carry with you all the time. Email next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. Your feedback tonight raises a fair question about whether or not we can be trusted. Next. We finished with your feedback. Pamela Mickle-John-Kelsey says you don't have all the Republican announced candidates on your governor's list. Makes me question the validity of your information for either party. Sure, there are 18 announced candidates for governor, some more serious than others. And we're going to give attention to anybody who shows significant support, be that public support or fundraising. Reminds me of the time that people got mad when we gave equal time to all 22 announced candidates for president. Must have been the nutrition party that got to people. See you next time.